I always thought the word independent meant something good, like a badge you earned or a secret level in a game that only the bravest kids could unlock. But the day my mom wheeled her suitcase to the door, pressed a crumpled bill into my hand, and told me, "You're independent now, Sydney," I realized it was just another word for alone. I was 11. I had never spent a night by myself, never cooked a real meal, never even been trusted to walk to the store alone. But there she was, smiling like she'd just handed me a trophy, not a problem. "Order food if you need to," she said, as if that solved everything. Then she was gone, suitcase wheels rattling down the driveway, the front door closing with a final, echoing click. I stood in the hallway, the $20 bill sweating in my palm, and tried to convince myself this was an adventure. That's what she wanted, right? For me to prove I could handle it. I said it out loud, just to hear something other than the silence. "I'll be fine." But my voice sounded small, and the house felt bigger than it ever had before. I checked the fridge, half empty, a few leftovers, a carton of milk that already smelled a little off. The pantry was worse, a couple of cans, a box of cereal, a jar of pickles I'd never liked. I lined them up on the counter like a general surveying her troops before a hopeless battle. The first night, I tried to make it fun. I sliced bread as thin as I could, spread peanut butter so carefully it barely covered the surface, and told myself I was a contestant on some survival show. I even laughed, a little, at the absurdity of it. But when the sun went down and the house creaked in the dark, the laughter dried up. I turned on every light, every TV, just to fill the emptiness. I texted my best friend Emma, pretending everything was normal. "How's your summer?" I wrote, as if I wasn't sitting in a kitchen that felt like a stranger's. By the second day, the $20 felt like a joke. I tried to order food, but the emergency credit card my mom had tossed on the counter was useless, declined, over and over, no PIN, no instructions. I watched the delivery app reject me again and again, my stomach twisting tighter each time. I thought about calling my mom, but what would I say? That I wasn't as independent as she thought? That I was hungry, scared, and already running out of options? I could almost hear her voice in my head. "You're fine, Sydney. You're mature. You can handle it." So I handled it. I rationed the food, counted every slice of bread, every spoonful of peanut butter. I made a game of it at first, but by day 3, the game wasn't fun anymore. The pantry was almost empty. The fridge was a graveyard of expired leftovers. My stomach growled so loud it startled me, even though I was the only one there to hear it. I started writing things down in my notebook, just to have something to do. At the top of the page, I wrote, "Evidence." Underneath, I listed everything, left alone at 11, $20. No working card. No food plan. No check-ins. I didn't know what I'd do with it, but writing it down made me feel less invisible. If I disappeared, at least someone would know it wasn't my fault. I picked up my phone and recorded a video, my face pale and pinched in the screen. "Day 3, I whispered. Still alone. The card doesn't work. I ate the last real food yesterday. If you're seeing this, it means someone finally asked what happened to me." I saved the clip, heart pounding, and locked my phone. Part of me hoped no one would ever see it. Another part wanted it to be the first thing my mom saw when she came home. By day 5, the hunger was a fog in my brain. I moved slow, dizzy every time I stood up. I found a half-empty box of cereal and ate it dry, one handful at a time, trying to make it last. I wrote another line in my notebook, day 5. Still no call from Mom. Not even a text. Then underneath, "If I disappear, this will prove it wasn't my fault." That was the moment something shifted. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was collecting proof. If my mom wanted to see what independence looked like, I'd show her. Every empty shelf, every missed call, every night I spent alone would be part of the story. On day 7, I was weak, but my anger was stronger. I shuffled to the window and watched the world go by, kids riding bikes, neighbors walking dogs, families laughing on their porches. Normal lives. Normal parents. I looked at our empty driveway and whispered, "You chose Europe over me. Do you know what that's going to cost you when someone finds out?" As if on cue, the doorbell rang. I froze, cereal crumbs still on my fingers. No one ever rang our doorbell. Not really. Neighbor kids knocked. Packages got dropped. But the bell rang again, followed by 3 sharp knocks. My heart pounded as I crept to the door. For a second, I thought about pretending I wasn't home. But another thought cut through the fear. What if this is it? What if this is the moment someone finally sees me? I cracked the door open just enough to see who was there. Standing on the porch was a man in a green jacket with my school's emblem stitched on the chest. It took me a second to recognize him without the classroom behind him. "Hi, Sydney," he said gently. It was Mr. Hughes, the school counselor. "I've been trying to reach your parents. They didn't pick up. Can I come in for a moment?" My first instinct was to lie, to say everything was fine, that my parents were just out, that I didn't need anything. But my hand loosened on the door and I stepped back. "Sure," I murmured. "I guess." He stepped inside, and suddenly the silence in the house felt heavier. The dishes in the sink, the empty counter, the nearly bare fruit bowl, all became evidence I hadn't meant to stage, but had accidentally left out. He looked around, his eyes pausing on the little details: the notebook open on the table, the empty cereal box, the way I hovered near the kitchen like I was guarding the last scraps of food. "Are your parents at work?" he asked, his voice careful, like he already knew the answer but wanted to give me a chance to say it myself. I shook my head, feeling my throat tighten. "They're in Europe," I said, and the words sounded ridiculous even to me. "For a month." His eyebrows shot up, the concern on his face sharpening into something more serious. "A month? And who's staying with you?" I hesitated, my fingers curling around the edge of my shirt. This was the line. The moment I could either protect them or tell the truth. "Just me," I admitted. "They said I was old enough." He sat down at the table, motioning for me to sit across from him. I did, my legs shaky. "Sydney, how long have you been alone?" he asked. "Almost a week," I whispered. "Do you have enough food? Money?" I let out a small, bitter laugh that didn't sound like me. "They left me a credit card that doesn't work and $20. He stared at me for a long moment, not the way teachers look when you forget your homework, but like he was counting all the ways this was wrong. "This isn't okay," he said finally, his voice low. "You know that, right?" I shrugged, even though my chest ached. "They said they needed a break. That I'm mature. That I should be able to handle it." He nodded, but his eyes were sad. "And how have you been handling it?" I wanted to say fine. I wanted to keep pretending. But the notebook on the table caught my eye, the word evidence staring back at me in my own handwriting. "I've been hungry," I said instead, my voice barely above a whisper. "And scared. And I've been writing things down. Just in case." "Just in case what?" he asked. "Just in case something happens to me," I replied quietly. "So nobody can say they didn't know." Silence filled the space between us. For a moment, I hated the silence, but then I realized he wasn't ignoring it. He was feeling it. Really feeling it. He leaned forward, his hands folded on the table. "Sydney, leaving an 11-year-old alone for a week, for a month, with almost no food and no supervision isn't just irresponsible. It's dangerous. It's neglect. There are laws about this." My heart thudded in my ears. Neglect. Laws. Words that sounded like they belonged in TV dramas, not in my kitchen. "What happens if someone finds out?" I asked, my voice suddenly small. "Agencies get involved," he said carefully. "Child Protective Services. There could be an investigation. Your parents could face serious consequences." There it was, the thing I hadn't dared to say out loud. The thing that made my anger twist into something sharper. "Consequences," I repeated slowly. "For what they did to me." He didn't rush to comfort me or tell me I was overreacting. Instead, he nodded. "For what they did to you." My mind raced. I imagined my mom's face when she came home to find strangers in our living room, people asking questions she couldn't dodge with a fake smile and a joke about independence. I pictured her seeing my notebook, my video clips, my empty pantry. "Do you want help, Sydney?" Mr. Hughes asked quietly. "Real help, not just groceries. The kind of help that makes sure this never happens again." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to slam the door on all of this and just wait for my parents to come back and pretend this month never happened. Another part of me, the part that had been writing the word evidence, was tired of pretending. Yes, I said finally. But if I say yes, what does that mean for them? It means they'll have to answer for their choices, he said. It means adults will finally see what you've been going through. I looked down at my hands, then back at him. Then help me, I said. I want them to see exactly what they did. I want them to feel what it's like to lose control. He nodded once, firmly. First, we make sure you're safe. Then, we make sure the right people hear your story. As he reached for his phone, a strange calm settled over me. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something new, a quiet, steady determination. I wasn't just a kid waiting to be rescued anymore. I was the witness. If you were in my place, would you keep protecting your parents, or would you finally let the truth become the weapon they never saw coming? Mr. Hughes stepped into the hallway to make a call, leaving me at the table with my notebook open. I could hear fragments of his voice, low and controlled, but the words that floated back to me were enough to make my pulse race. Alone, 11, no guardian, no food in the house. I traced the ink on the page with my fingertip. Evidence. Suddenly, it didn't feel like a secret diary anymore. It felt like a case file. A few minutes later, he came back. I called your neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, he said. And I also spoke with someone from the Child Protection Hotline. They're going to send someone to check on you. But first, we need to get you something to eat. My cheeks burned at the idea of people checking on me like I was some broken machine. But I also felt something else, a small flare of satisfaction. If they were checking on me, that meant they were also checking on my parents. Is Mrs. Johnson mad? I asked. He shook his head. No, she's worried. That's what good neighbors do. A knock sounded at the door, softer than his earlier one. Mrs. Johnson stepped inside, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, landing on the notebook, the empty cereal box on the counter, the pale look on my face. Oh, Sydney, she breathed. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I didn't want to look weak, I blurted out. They always tell me I'm mature, that I can handle things. I thought asking for help meant I was proving them wrong. Her expression softened. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's survival. And sometimes it's the only way to make adults face what they do. That last sentence hit me like a bell. Make adults face what they do. We all sat down together, and for the first time I didn't feel like a kid being talked over. They asked me to tell them everything, and I did. I told them about the suitcase rolling out the front door. The $20, the card that didn't work. The way my mom laughed when I asked who would be staying with me. You'll be fine. You're my little adult, she had said, like it was a compliment. As I talked, Mrs. Johnson's jaw clenched. Mr. Hughes scribbled notes on a pad he had pulled from his bag. Can we show them this? I asked, pointing to my notebook. When they come, the people from the hotline. Yes, Mr. Hughes said. In fact, I want you to keep writing what you felt, what you ate, when you tried to call them, everything you remember. So they can't twist it later, I murmured. So they can't say I'm exaggerating. Exactly, he replied. You're allowed to protect yourself with the truth. The phrase made my chest tighten. Protect myself with the truth. That sounded a lot like revenge, and I realized I didn't hate that. Later, when the caseworker arrived, she introduced herself and asked to look around the house. I watched her eyes linger on the nearly empty fridge, the trash can with only a few wrappers, the unused emergency credit card on the counter. She didn't have to say anything. Her expression said it all. How long have your parents been gone? She asked gently. 7 days, I answered. They planned a month. And who checks on you? No one until today. Do they call? Not since the airport, I said. She sent a selfie from Paris with a heart emoji. That was it. The caseworker nodded slowly, then turned to Mr. Hughes and Mrs. Johnson. Thank you for contacting us, she said. As they talked, I slipped away for a second and set up my phone on the counter, opening the video app again. I recorded a quiet clip of the empty fridge, the lonely table, the caseworker's bag resting on the chair. This is what our house looked like when they finally noticed I was alone, I said into the camera. This is what my mom will walk into when she comes back. When I was done, I tucked my phone into my pocket, the recording safely saved. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was documenting. The caseworker came back to me. "For now, you won't be alone again," she said. "We're arranging for you to stay with Mrs. Johnson while we speak to your parents and figure out the next steps." I glanced at my neighbor. She smiled softly and squeezed my shoulder. "Is that okay with you, Sydney?" the caseworker asked. I thought about my empty house, the long quiet nights, the way my mom's last message had been about croissants instead of me. Then I thought about something else. What it would do to my parents when they came home and found not just a lonely kid, but an official report waiting for them. "Yes," I said. "I want to stay somewhere I'm not invisible." That night, as I packed a small bag of clothes and my notebook, I looked around my room one more time. The posters on my wall, the stuffed animal on my bed, the window that faced the street. "This was the place you left," I whispered under my breath, imagining my mom hearing it later. "But it's not the place you'll find when you come back." If you were me, would you choose to forgive and forget? Or would you let every empty shelf and unanswered call become proof that could change everything? Moving next door should have felt like nothing, just a few steps across a patch of grass. But carrying my small bag and my notebook into Mrs. Johnson's house felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. I wasn't just the kid in the middle anymore. I was the kid someone had chosen to protect. Her house smelled like laundry and vanilla. The table was set with placemats and her fridge was full of actual food, not just leftovers clinging to the corners of shelves. My stomach growled before I could stop it. "We'll fix that first," she said, pretending not to notice my embarrassment. "Come on, let's cook together." We walked back to my kitchen with reusable bags. This time, she didn't just grab food at random. She let me choose. Pasta, sauce, vegetables, bread, fruit, things that would last, things that made the kitchen look like someone actually lived there. "Keep the receipts," Mr. Hughes said quietly as we unloaded the bags. "They show what wasn't here before today." So, we put the receipts in my notebook behind the pages where I had written about my hunger. Evidence. Layer by layer, as we cooked, the sound of boiling water and sizzling garlic wrapped around me like something I had missed without knowing it. "Have you ever made spaghetti from scratch like this?" Mrs. Johnson asked. "Not really," I admitted. "My mom mostly microwaves stuff, or we order takeout." "Then today you learn," she said with a smile. "You learn how to feed yourself properly. Nobody can take that away from you." I stirred the sauce, watching the red swirl around the pan. It felt symbolic somehow, like all the anger and hurt inside me was finally going somewhere, turning into something I could use. While we waited for the pasta, the caseworker came back with more questions. She asked for my mom's messages, the time of her flight, the last time she called. I showed her the one selfie with the Eiffel Tower in the background and the caption, "Finally free for a month." "Free from what?" the caseworker asked. I stared at the screen. "From me, I guess." She wrote something down. I didn't ask what. I didn't need to. "Do you want to say anything directly to your parents?" she asked. "We sometimes include statements from kids in our reports." For a second, my throat closed up. Then I felt my notebook pressing against my arm where I held it, and my answer came out clear. "Yes," I said. "I want them to know exactly what this felt like." We sat at the table and I wrote while the spaghetti cooked. "You said I was mature enough to be alone," I wrote. "But being mature doesn't mean I don't need food. It doesn't mean I don't get scared. You told everyone how hard you work, but you didn't notice when your own kid was counting crumbs." I stopped, took a breath, and kept going. "By the time you read this, other adults will have already seen what you did. They will have seen the empty fridge, the dead card, the notebook where I had to record my own neglect. If there are consequences, they are not because I betrayed you. They are because you left me." When I finished, I slid the paper toward the caseworker. "Can you make sure they see this?" "I can," she said. "And I will." Later that evening, I sat at Mrs. Johnson's table, twirling spaghetti around my fork. The first bite almost made me cry. It was warm and real and tasted like something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. This is what normal is supposed to feel like, I thought. Not sitting alone on the floor eating dry cereal out of a box. Mr. Hughes stayed for dinner and we talked about school, books, and even silly things like the worst cafeteria lunches we'd ever had. For an hour, I almost forgot that my life was technically falling apart in the house next door. But when the plates were cleared and the grown-ups started talking quietly in the living room, I heard pieces of their conversation. Words like temporary placement, investigation, and possible removal of custody. I didn't fully understand every legal term, but I understood the feeling underneath them. My parents had treated my absence like a vacation from responsibility. Now, there was a real chance they could lose the right to call themselves my guardians at all. Back in the guest room where I would sleep, I set my phone up one more time and hit record. Day 7. But it's different now, I said softly into the camera. I'm not in my house. I'm somewhere safe. People know. They saw the truth. I looked straight at my own reflection. If you're my mom watching this, I want you to remember something. You always said actions have consequences. That if I messed up, I would have to face them. This time it's your turn. This is not just my story. It's your choice. Written in real time. I stopped the recording and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. My heart wasn't light. It hurt. I still missed the idea of parents who would have stayed. But I also knew something else now. I was not powerless. Maybe one act of kindness really could change everything. But would it be enough to fix a lifetime of being second place to work and vacations? Or would it simply give me the strength to walk away from them for good when the time came? The days at Mrs. Johnson's house felt unreal at first, like I had stepped into someone else's family by accident. I woke up to the smell of breakfast instead of the sound of my own stomach growling. There was always someone asking how I slept, not just assuming I was fine. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to prove I was independent every second just to be tolerated. But even with the warmth, there was a countdown ticking in the background. Every adult around me knew it. I knew it too. At some point, my parents would have to come back. At some point, they would have to walk into everything they left behind. On the second night, my phone buzzed while I was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. A number I recognized flashed on the screen. My mom's work phone. I stared at it until the screen started to dim. Aren't you going to answer? Mrs. Johnson asked gently. My fingers trembled. What if she's just calling to yell at me for ruining her trip? Then you'll know exactly where you stand, she said calmly. But you don't have to talk to her alone. I hit accept and put the phone on speaker. Sydney? Her voice snapped through the line, sharp, not worried. What is going on? Why is there some woman from Child Services emailing me about an investigation? Why is your school involved? Do you have any idea what this looks like for me? There it was. No, are you okay? No, are you safe? Just what this looks like for me. I swallowed. They're involved because you left me, I said. My voice shook, but I got the words out. You went to Europe for a month. You left me alone with $20 and a credit card that didn't work. They saw the house. They saw the fridge. They saw everything. You're exaggerating, she shot back instantly. There was plenty of food. You know how dramatic you can be. And you're 11, not a toddler. I can't believe you would turn people against us like this. Do you understand what you're doing to our reputation? Across the table, I saw Mrs. Johnson's jaw tighten. She leaned closer so her voice would carry. This is Mrs. Johnson, I'm the neighbor. I'm also the one who bought your daughter groceries because there was almost nothing left. This is not about reputation. It's about safety. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Why are you interfering? This is a family matter. Sydney is fine. I glanced at the notebook next to me, open to a page where I had written no call for 7 days. No, I said quietly, cutting in before anyone else could. I wasn't fine. I am not fine with what you did. There was a pause, and for a split second I thought maybe she would finally hear me. Then she spoke again, each word shoved through clenched teeth. We'll talk about this when we get back, and we are going to have a serious conversation about consequences, young lady. The line went dead. Mrs. Johnson reached over and silenced the phone before it could buzz again. She's right about one thing, she said softly. There will be consequences, but not just for you. The next day, the caseworker came to the school and pulled me out of class. We sat in a small office that smelled like dry erase markers and old coffee while she scrolled through something on her tablet. Your parents have moved their flight up, she told me. They'll be home in 3 days instead of 3 weeks. My heart flipped. Part of me was relieved they weren't staying gone for the full month. Another part of me recognized the reason. They weren't coming back for me. They were coming back to protect themselves. What happens when they get here? I asked. We'll meet them at the house, she said. I'll be there along with a supervisor from the department. Mr. Hughes has agreed to attend as a school representative. We want you to be part of the conversation if you feel safe. I thought about hiding at Mrs. Johnson's house and letting the adults handle it. I thought about slipping into my room and pretending I was asleep when they walked in. Both options felt like going back to being invisible. No, I said slowly. I want to be there. I want them to see me. I want them to see what they came home to. The caseworker nodded. Then we'll make sure you have a voice in that room. For the next 2 days, we prepared without calling it preparation. We didn't rehearse lines like in a school play, but we organized facts. The caseworker printed copies of my statement, the notes from my notebook she had permission to use, the receipts from the groceries, screenshots of my mom's posts from Europe, the call logs that showed how many times she hadn't checked in. This is not about punishing them for the sake of it, she reminded me. This is about making sure you are safe. Whatever happens comes from their choices, not your existence. I understood what she meant, but another part of me, the part that remembered eating dry cereal in the dark, couldn't pretend this didn't feel like something else, too. It felt like justice. It felt like holding up a mirror. On the morning of their return, we went back into my house for the first time in days. It still smelled faintly like stale air and dust. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to walk through each room. This was my scene. I couldn't look away. The caseworker placed a thick folder on the kitchen table. Beside it, we put my notebook open to the first page that said evidence. My phone sat next to it, turned on and ready. The first video I had recorded, the one where I said, "Day 3, I'm still alone," was paused on the screen. The image of my own tired face stared back at me. "Are you sure you want this playing when they arrive?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She always tells me stories don't matter unless there is proof. This is my proof. Mrs. Johnson stood by the doorway, arms crossed, but eyes kind. Mr. Hughes leaned against the counter, his school badge clipped neatly to his shirt, watching everything with quiet focus. The supervisor from the department sat at the table, flipping through the file one more time. We heard the car before we saw it, tires crunching on the driveway, doors slamming, muffled laughter that faded the moment they stepped inside. My mom came in first, dragging her suitcase, sunglasses perched on her head like she was still on vacation. My dad followed, juggling bags and talking into his phone, his voice light and careless until he saw the room. They both stopped. The laughter died. My mom's eyes darted from the unfamiliar faces to the open notebook, to the phone glowing on the table, and finally to me. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp, suitcase handle dropping from her hand. "What are all of you doing in my kitchen?" The supervisor stood, calm and steady. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Carter, my name is Ms. Lopez from Child Protective Services. Please have a seat. We need to discuss the situation regarding your daughter, Sydney." My mom didn't sit. She stared at me, her eyes hard and searching. "Sydney, what did you tell them?" For a moment, I felt the old urge to shrink, to apologize, to twist the story so she wouldn't be angry. But the video on the phone caught my eye. My own small, tired face from days ago. I lifted my chin. "I told them what happened," I said. "I told them the truth." My dad tried to smooth things over, setting his bags down and forcing a laugh. "There's clearly been a misunderstanding. We left her with food, with money, with a credit card. She's a very mature 11-year-old. She knows how to take care of herself. Kids these days are more capable than people think." The supervisor slid a printed sheet across the table. "This is the activation record for your card. It was never set up with a PIN. It was declined multiple times when Sydney tried to use it." She tapped another page. "These are photos taken of your refrigerator and pantry 1 week into your trip. The amount of food was not sufficient for an unsupervised minor, and several items had already expired." My mom finally sat, more from shock than agreement. Expired food doesn't mean she was starving, she snapped. We were only gone a week so far. We checked in. The supervisor slid another paper forward. These are your call and message logs. One photo from the airport, one selfie from Paris. No direct check-ins, no calls asking if she had eaten, if she was safe, if anyone was staying with her. My dad's face went pale. He glanced at the logs, then at me. We told you to order food, Sydney. We trusted you. You trusted me to survive, I said quietly. You didn't trust yourselves to be parents. Mrs. Johnson stepped forward, her voice trembling with anger. She was dizzy from hunger when we found her. She said she didn't come to me because she didn't want to disappoint you by needing help. Do you have any idea what kind of lesson that is for a child? My mom looked between us, her eyes narrowing. This is getting blown way out of proportion. Maybe she was a little dramatic with her notes. She likes to write. The supervisor nodded at me, then at my phone. Sydney, are you comfortable showing them what you recorded? My hands shook as I pressed play. The room filled with my own voice. Day 3. I'm still alone. The card doesn't work. I ate the last decent thing in the fridge yesterday. If you're seeing this, it means someone finally asked what happened to me. The camera panned across the kitchen, catching the empty shelves, the lonely box of cereal, the silent room. My mom slapped a hand over her mouth. My dad stared, his shoulders sinking. No, my mom whispered, stepping back like the images were pushing her. No, this cannot be happening. But it was. And this time, she couldn't scroll past it or laugh it off. The supervisor folded her hands. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, based on our investigation, school reports, neighbor testimony, and Sydney's own documentation, we have determined that leaving her unsupervised under these conditions qualifies as neglect under state law. Effective immediately, there will be an emergency order in place. Sydney will not be returning to unsupervised care with either of you until a full hearing is conducted. My mom shook her head, tears spilling now. Sydney, please, she begged. Tell them you want to come home. Tell them we can fix this. We can start over. We can be better. I wanted to. A part of me, the part that still remembered bedtime stories and holiday decorations, wanted to rewind everything. But another part of me, the part that had spent nights recording videos in the dark, knew that going back without change would mean saying none of it mattered. I want to be safe, I said. I want to be somewhere I am seen before I disappear. Right now, that's not with you. As we left, I heard my mom sobbing inside, my dad's voice a distant echo. Walking back across the grass to Mrs. Johnson's house, I felt both heavy and strangely light. I hadn't ruined my family. They had done that themselves when they chose a month of freedom over a kid who still counted on them to come home every night. All I had done was refuse to hide it. And when my mom whispered, "No, this cannot be happening," I realized the truth. It already had. It had been happening from the moment she chose a plane ticket over me.